The dust from my truck hadn't even settled when I saw them. A cluster of pastel-color houses squatting on the eastern ridge of my property, like uninvited guests at a funeral. I killed the engine and sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. I'd been away for 8 months. 8 months helping my sister through her cancer treatment in Oregon. 8 months of hospitals and hope and fear. And in that time, someone had built an entire neighborhood on land that had been in my family for 4 generations. My name is Marcus Webb, and I own 1,200 acres of Montana rangeland. Or at least, I thought I did. I grabbed my phone and dialed my property manager, Eddie. "Tell me I'm hallucinating," I said when he picked up. There was a long pause. "You're back?" "Marcus, I've been trying to reach you for months. Your voicemail was full, and, Eddie, there are houses on my land. Multiple houses. With mailboxes. I know. I tried to stop them. I really did. But they had permits, Marcus. Official-looking documents. They said the land had been rezoned and sold to a development company. I called the county. I called lawyers, but without you here to... Nobody sold anything." My voice cracked like thunder. "This is my land." "I know that, but they have an HOA, Marcus. They have bylaws. They even tried to fine me for your cattle trespassing on common areas." I felt my blood pressure spike into dangerous territory. My cattle trespassing on my own land. I put them in the western pastures to avoid conflict. But Marcus, these people, they're not going to just leave. They think they own it. I thanked Eddie and hung up, my mind racing. Then I did what any reasonable person would do. I drove straight up to the nearest house and knocked on the door. A woman in her 50s answered, wearing a tennis outfit and an expression of supreme entitlement. Her blonde hair was pulled back, so tight it probably counted as a facelift. "Can I help you?" she asked, looking me up and down with obvious distaste. My boots were dusty, my jeans worn, my shirt wrinkled from travel. "I'm Marcus Webb. I own this land. All of it, including the spot where your house is currently sitting." She blinked at me, then laughed. "That's absurd. This is Ridgeview Estates. We're a planned community. I'm Patricia Moreland, HOA president, and I can assure you that everything here is perfectly legal." "Legal?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the property deed, digitally stored. "This document says otherwise. It's dated 1947. My grandfather's name, then my father's, then mine." Patricia's smile never wavered. "Well, that's certainly something you'll need to take up with the development company. But as far as Ridgeview Estates is concerned, we purchased our homes in good faith. Now, if you'll excuse me, we're having an HOA meeting in an hour, and I need to prepare." She started to close the door, but I put my hand against it. Not roughly, just firmly. "Ma'am, I don't know what scam you've been caught up in, but this is my land. Those aren't just words on paper. My family has worked this soil for 78 years. Then you should have been here to protect it," she said coldly, and shut the door in my face. I stood there, fury and disbelief warring in my chest. Then I noticed them, at least a dozen residents, emerging from their cookie-cutter homes, watching me like I was an invader, like I was the problem. That night, I drove into town and met with Sarah Chun, the only real estate attorney within 50 miles who'd take a meeting on short notice. "This is wild," she said, spreading documents across her desk. "Your deed is legitimate and recorded. But somehow, the development company," she checked her notes, "Horizon Properties, LLC, filed paperwork claiming eminent domain transfer, which is complete nonsense for a private development. Then they got the land rezoned while you were gone. How is that possible? Corruption, incompetence, or both? The county clerk who approved this was fired 3 months ago for unrelated fraud. But here's the thing, Marcus. Getting these people removed will take time. We're talking lawsuits, evictions, legal battles that could drag on for years." Years! I felt sick. "Sarah, that's my home. That's my livelihood." "I know, but these residents, they have contracts, mortgages, lives built on what they genuinely believe is their property. Even though it's fraud, even though you'll win eventually, The courts moved slowly. I drove back to my ranch, or what was left of it, and spent the night in my old family homestead, staring at the ceiling and planning my next move. The HOA meeting the next evening was held in Patricia's oversized living room. I showed up uninvited. Mr. Webb, Patricia said icily, "This is a private meeting for residents only. Then it's being held on private property." I replied, "Mine, so I think I'll stay." The 15 or so residents murmured amongst themselves. I recognized the look in their eyes. Fear dressed up as indignation. "Fine," Patricia said, "but you need to understand something. We are not leaving. We have invested our life savings into these homes. We have rights." "Built on fraud?" I said quietly. "You were scammed. Horizon Properties sold you land they didn't own. I'm not your enemy here. They are." A younger man stood up, his face red. "That's easy for you to say. What are we supposed to do? Just walk away from our mortgages? Lose everything?" "I'm not asking you to lose everything. I'm asking you to help me find the truth. If we work together." "Work together?" Patricia interrupted. "You show up here making accusations, threatening us with eviction, and you want cooperation? I'm not threatening you. I'm stating facts. This is my land. But I understand your victims, too. Let's find Horizon Properties. Let's get your money back. Let's make this right." An older man in the back spoke up, his voice tired. "I looked into Horizon Properties last month. Something felt off about our HOA fees. The company doesn't exist anymore. Dissolved. The owner, some guy named Richard Kessler, vanished. Took about $8 million with him." The room went silent. "So we're screwed," someone whispered. "We're just screwed." I took a breath. "No, you're not, because here's what we're going to do." Over the next hour, I laid out a plan. I'd sue Horizon Properties assets, whatever could be recovered. Sarah Chun would represent the residents collectively in a class action against the fraud. And in the meantime, I'd lease the land to the HOA for $1 per year until everything was sorted out. "Why would you do that?" Patricia asked, suspicion dripping from every word. "Because kicking you out doesn't get my land back any faster. Because you're not my enemy. And because I looked around the room at these people who built their lives on a lie. My grandfather always said land is worthless if you lose your humanity fighting for it." Patricia's face softened just slightly. "We'll need that in writing. You'll have it by tomorrow." 3 months later, we stood in a county courtroom. Sarah had done the impossible. Traced Kessler's assets to 3 offshore accounts and frozen them. The county admitted fault in the rezoning process. And every single resident of Ridgeview Estates was granted restitution. But here's the thing nobody expected. They voted to stay. With their money secured and the legal issues resolved, the HOA approached me with a proposal, a legitimate long-term lease agreement. They'd pay fair market rent, maintain the property, and I'd retain ownership. My ranch would continue operating on the western pastures. We'd coexist. Patricia extended her hand in my driveway one autumn morning. "I owe you an apology, Mr. Webb." "Several, actually." I shook her hand. "You were protecting your home. I understand that. Still, we judged you before knowing you. And you chose grace when you could have chosen vengeance." I looked out over the ridge, where the pastel houses now sat alongside my cattle ranges, an unlikely community born from chaos. My grandfather used to say the land teaches you, if you let it. It taught me that sometimes the worst invasions lead to the strongest alliances. Patricia smiled. "Well, speaking of alliances, the HOA voted last night. We're officially changing the name to Webbridge Community. It seemed only fair." I felt something catch in my throat. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes," she said firmly. "We did." As she walked back toward her house, legally hers now, properly contracted and paid for, I thought about the past months. The anger, the fear, the lawsuits, and finally, the resolution. My land was still mine. But now I held something my grandfather never could have imagined. Proof that even when people illegally occupy 1,200 acres of your life, sometimes the biggest mistake isn't theirs for trespassing. Sometimes it's yours if you forget that justice and mercy can coexist like houses and cattle on Montana rangeland, under the same endless sky.